Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar. My name's Hayley and I'll be monitoring the chat and helping if you have any technical issues throughout. Today we're going to be focusing on OneIntegrate and OneData Gateway. Your hosts for today will be Charley, Glynn and Ricardo Cifres, and I will be on hand and I will hand over to them shortly. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. You've all been placed on mute, however, we do welcome your questions and comments, so please type these into the questions panel. We will address these at the end of today's webinar in the Q&A session, and if we don't get a chance to answer, don't worry, we'll follow up with you afterwards via email. And finally, today's webinar will be recorded and we'll share the link with you afterwards via email. So over to you, Charley and Ricardo.
Thank you, Hayley. Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your no doubt busy schedules to come and hear more about smarter schema management with OneIntegrate and OneData Gateway. Just so you can put a face to our voices, this is us. I'm Charley Glynn, Product Manager for OneIntegrate, and I'm joined by my colleague Ricardo, Product Manager for OneData Gateway.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us.
We'll start with a quick overview of Nonspatial. So we're a global company with a presence in many regions and an active user base across the world. The map here highlights our office locations with our head office here in Cambridge. Our customers are spread across multiple industries and verticals, with our focus mainly on the three that are shown here. That's government, utilities and transport. Here we can see a sample of our customers in each of these. They include SATSEN, United Utilities and the Kansas Department of Transportation. We also work with a range of partners. So we have data partners, we have technology partners and also delivery partners. You will see from today's webinar how our products and technologies can be integrated into many types of workflow. And a good example of this is the work we're doing on the National Underground Asset Register, better known as NUAR. So on that project, we're working alongside Atkins and Ordnance Survey to deliver and roll out nationwide. Nonspatial at its core is all about data management solutions, data quality, and unlocking the value that's inherent within data. This is where we have over 50 years of experience and expertise. The focus is obviously on geospatial data, but our products are agnostic in the sense that the same concepts are true for all forms of data. So we help organizations validate their data and ensure that it's conformant and correct. We are then able to flag any errors or issues clearly to the user. We also help people correct and enhance their data where issues are found. So this can take several forms, from simple geometry fix-ups right through to data derivation, data inference, and even generalization. But one common use case is data conflation. And this is where the need is to collect and collate data from multiple sources. And this is one case where correct data management of the schemas is really important. Our products and solutions are capable of automating repeatable tasks that are often very manual and therefore can save lots of time and effort. Our rules-based approach enables you to encode knowledge into rules which can be deployed as part of automated flow lines. And that brings me nicely on to OneIntegrate. OneIntegrate brings the power of our patented rules engine to your data. It helps deliver automated data validation, data cleansing, transformation and enhancement. And it can give you the confidence in your own data by assessing its quality and ultimately ensuring that it's fit for purpose. So you can see from this slide that lots of the benefits talk about automation, and this is enabled via the REST API. OneIntegrate also has a web-based user interface, and that gives users a no-code option to set up their rules and configure and run sessions. Together, they make OneIntegrate a really flexible product that can be used in a way that suits your needs. And also, it can be utilized in different ways throughout a project's life cycle.
And for those of you that don't know OneData Gateway, it is a web portal connected to OneIntegrate that is really easy to use, so that by dragging and dropping a file and a few clicks, the user can trigger the most complex data validation or enhancement processes without even needing to know what's happening under the bonnet. A typical use case is when there are third parties delivering data to you. Data can be automatically evaluated and rejected or accepted at the point of entry, saving substantial amounts of time and hassle. Statistical data about the submissions are collected and can be viewed either on a built-in dashboard or through an external dashboarding application of your choice via the Statistics API. You can see the information about who sent the data, what data, on behalf of what organization, when, and validation results, among other information. Being a cloud-based application accessible through a web browser, the validation processes can be accessed by anyone from anywhere. Well, of course, access to the processes is restricted to organizations and users. You can even integrate OneData Gateway with external identity providers via LDAP, SAML, or OAuth if you want to use single sign-on. Next slide, please. The OneData Gateway API has been extended to allow data to be submitted directly without the user interface. This creates several new benefits like streamlined workflows automated for submitting data. You still have the metadata from submissions, of course, in your dashboards, and the security and identification provided by OneData Gateway by providing API keys per user. The ability to pass submissions via the API allows for seamless integration into wider automated workflows as an alternative to manual data submission. Additionally, the ability to pass metadata about each submission back into the rules engine as parameters allows for rules to be fine-tuned for particular purposes and suppliers. Products and processes that occur downstream of data submission often need to know who provided updates and when. This information is maintained as submission metadata. One such downstream process may be a dashboard in which it is useful to show how many updates users provide. You may also want to investigate in the case that there are proposed changes to review, like who provided the data that caused the proposed change. Go back to you, Charley.
Thank you, Ricardo. Now, just to look at a few of our success stories over the years. So we start at the top with Northumbrian Water. We worked with them on a sewer inference project, and you can see there that the cost savings were to the tune of nearly £9 million. And equally, the time to deliver their project was reduced significantly by 87%. When we worked with the US Census Bureau on data integration, they too were able to save a significant amount of money, $5 billion in that instance. And when we worked with ADV in Germany on their generalization work, we were equally able to reduce production time by 40% by introducing more automation into their systems and workflows. So today we're here to talk about OneIntegrate and OneData Gateway. So we'll take a look at some of the feature highlights from our recent releases. So OneIntegrate 3.3 was released in May, and it really was a feature-packed release. This is just a small subset of the features that ended up in there. We start with non-spatial filtering. We've added a Schema Only data store, and then a couple of new tasks that we will talk more about that help with Schema Management. We've added new built-in functions for web services, and we now enable the committing back to file geodatabase and the increasingly popular OGC geopackage. These features are alongside many more enhancements, a whole bunch of bug fixes, and as always, improvements and new additions to our documentation.
Here, the new main features in the latest version of OneData Gateway, which is 2.6, which was released a few days back. Most of them are related to the new features in OneIntegrate that Charley has just mentioned, so that we can leverage them from OneData Gateway. We will see a couple of them in action in a minute. These are the non-spatial filter, the validate and transform schema tasks, and the schema only data store and open schema task. Additionally, we have improved the schema mapping feature by allowing mappings to be created in advance and copied across specifications, and as we will see in more detail later. We can also send metadata of the uploaded files, like file name and size, to OneIntegrate, so that this information can be used or passed to other parts of the data workflow where they might be needed. Back to you.
Thank you. So we'll start by taking a bit more of a deep dive into some of those new features, and we'll kick off with non-spatial filtering. So in OneIntegrate, now additionally, as well as geometric filtering, you can also restrict data that you load in based on non-spatial filters. So this works much in the way like a SQL where clause, although it is slightly different in terms of the syntax. You can find out all about that in the documentation. The real benefits of this is that it means that you only process the data that you need when you need it. So it's a real time saver in that sense. It's also really flexible in the way that it's been implemented. So it's configured within a session on the open data task, meaning that it can be changed easily. And you can also pass in session parameter values, which can be quite a powerful way to send values and things in to restrict certain data dependent on your scenario. And you can just see the quote on the screen there. That is a genuine quote from one of our consultants who was clearly very pleased to get their hands on this new feature. We've also included a new suite of built-in functions for interacting with web services. These are really powerful and flexible, and we're really excited and interested to see how our users put these to good use. So they allow you to connect with web-based services such as a REST API. You can do get, post, put, and delete requests. You can then choose how you parse and use that data that gets returned. So this really does allow you to access information from many different sources as long as they're connected to the web. And it's really flexible in the sense that they are generic functions that can be used in multiple different ways. Then we move on to the first of our new schema functionality. So this is the schema only data store. We have many different types of data store within OneIntegrate for many different data formats. But this actually allows you to create your own schema using custom classes and custom attributes without the need to load the data, which in many cases can be an unnecessary task. The schemas can be opened within a session using the open schema task. So as I say, this really is another one that can help save time in terms of processing time, as there's no need to load that data. Again, it's customizable and flexible in the way that it's being implemented. And also it allows for easy sharing and reuse of those custom class and attribute definitions.
We're going to show how the open schema task can be used with OneData Gateway in a particular use case. Imagine that you have a process that does validation on a number of classes, but you want to allow the users to upload data that contains only a subset of those classes. Charley, can you please start the video? Thank you. Now you can use the open schema task to open a complete schema that contains all the required classes, ensuring that the execution of the rules will not fail because of a missing class. Then the user can submit a subset of the classes and only those uploaded. There you can see here that the road class is missing. So only those uploaded will be validated, but the process will run smoothly. You can see that you will see that the last of the tasks will check on roads, which was missing in the uploaded data, but instead of failing, it's just processing zero features, but the process completed successfully. Back over to you, Charley.
Thank you, Ricardo. So next we'll look at the new schema management tasks. This one is the validate schema task, and this allows you to compare schemas between two different data sets. You will input a source and a reference. Again, there's no need to load the actual data that's associated with them. Any differences are then recorded in a report, so you can view that via the user interface, or you can download those as an XML file. The reports show any differences between classes, attributes, and indeed the data types, and they show those in the form of excess, missing, or any mismatches get highlighted. The real benefits of this is that you can check schemas without loading the associated data, so you can be confident that when you do run your data through, that it's going to be correct. And then, yeah, you have the confidence in that before you actually process the data itself.
We are going to see now how the schema validation task can be used from OneData Gateway. Can you please start the video?
Sure.
Thank you. Being a user-centered application, OneData Gateway adds a user-friendly PDF report of the schema validation rather than the XML report that OneIntegrate provides. After uploading the file, you have the opportunity to adjust the schema mapping if allowed. You'll see that here. You have a map source data, but we can continue. This is a very simple process that just validates the schema of the uploaded file. Here, expanding the validate schema task, you can access a button to download the PDF report. In it, you can see all issues encountered during the validation, like missing classes, excess classes, or invalid classes due to attribute problems, like this, in which you have also missing attributes, excess attributes, and wrong data types in the attributes. Back over to you, Charlie.
Thank you. We then have the transform schema task. So this is designed for advanced changes of a schema. So it consists of, you will input a source, a target, and then you will configure the mappings between the two. So the mappings are will normally be stored within a database table or in a CSV file. And they can cover attribute mappings, code list mappings, and indeed kind of more advanced derived attribute mappings. So the benefits here are that it takes data schema transformation to a kind of advanced level and is actually nice and easy to implement. Mappings can be stored centrally within that database or within that CSV file. They can then be shared easily, amongst different projects or between departments. And one nice feature is that you can also apply that non-spatial filtering that we spoke about. That can be applied to make sure that you're restricting the mappings to only those that are relevant in a given scenario.
Finally, in the schema management area, we have also added a new feature in OneData Gateway that will help with complex schema mappings with potentially a large number of classes and attributes to map. Until now, when you started a submission, you could define the schema mapping and save it for future use, but only for that particular specification, having to repeat the operation if you were using the same schema for multiple specifications or processes. Now, these mappings can be created beforehand without the need to start a new submission, and maybe by an advanced user and save for other users to apply. Also, these mappings can be copied from one specification to another, saving a good deal of work to the users. Back to you.
Thank you very much. So hopefully what Ricardo and I have shown you today is that the new features within OneIntegrate and OneData Gateway can make your data workflows more efficient and even help reduce costs. So you can see that we do continue to invest in our core products, and we work closely with our users to ensure that what we develop improves the user experience and continues to enable you to maximize the value from your own data sets. Finally, just to summarize this webinar, I mean, we focus largely on the improvements to schema management and the power and the flexibility that those bring. But it's fair to say that there's also a ton of other new features within those releases that we haven't covered today. So do feel free to pop over to our documentation and check all the detail within the release notes. Alternatively, please do feel free to reach out to either of us. Our email addresses are on the screen now. And really that just leaves us to say thank you for joining us again. I will just have a quick check to see if we've had any questions come through on the chat. We can pick those up if we have. Okay, so I can just see a couple there. So first one, if I want to receive data from different departments and they are slightly different attribute names in their schemas, how would I configure that? I'll maybe throw that one over to you, Ricardo, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Well, after you upload a file, and I think we have seen this briefly in the demo, there's a schema mapping screen in which you have two columns, one with all the schema that you have uploaded and another with the target schema that is expected. So you can match your class names to the target ones easily.
Brilliant. There's one more as well, Ricardo, that will throw you away. How can I share a defined schema if I know how I need it to be mapped? Okay,
I think we also in the second in the slide they explained that we can create schema mappings in advance. So a user can upload a file, the schema is inspected, and you can then create your mappings and save them for other users to use. Also, as schemas can be copied across multiple specifications, so if you use the same schema for different processes, you can copy it without needing to redo the work of the mapping again.
Cool, thank you. And just seen one third question has just pinged through. This is about the non-spatial filtering. So the non-spatial filtering of data looks really interesting. I assume this can be used to only load data that meets certain attribute criteria. So yeah, that's absolutely right. So as I mentioned earlier, it works a lot like a SQL where clause. You can write your own queries against any attribute that's within your data. For an example, you might have a data set about residential buildings. You might have a type attribute, and you may only be interested in loading and processing data that concerns terrace houses, for example. So you could write a query something to the tune of type equals terrace. Indeed, you could do the inverse of that. So you could put type does not equal terrace, and all those kind of queries that you can construct yourself. So yeah, it's a super flexible querying language. As I say, you can filter against any class or any attribute within your data. And yeah, that one can be a real time saver. So using that alongside the extent filters can mean that you really are only processing the data that you're concerned with. So yeah, and that looks to be it for questions. So just to say once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and take care.
Thank you.